Hey, moron! Hey, moron! Dude! Look at me! I'm the waterboard, dude!
Well, good Saturday morning, friends. Mark Holmes here, of course, with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business here and let's wake up the football gods. Man, last night we did not do our Friday evening live stream. We will be doing our 5 o'clock live stream Eastern with channel members and things. Thank you for bearing with me. We had a 40th year get together. My high school team are now 5-0. They won again last night, and it was great seeing some people that I have not seen in 40 years. And I realize I'm old as dirt, but it was actually really, really cool. So thank you for understanding me not being here on a day that was really just kind of terrible news-wise. The Cowboys, we got to win against the Giants. Of course, anytime the Cowboys win any game, it's deemed it doesn't matter. That for whatever reason, it's not good enough. I was listening to Dan Urlowsey, and he's saying, oh, well, yeah, the Cowboys scored with C.D. Lamb and things, but it was really more a blown coverage and things. So it wasn't like it was a great play. Or the other touchdown pass, it could have been holding and this, that, and the other. You could say that literally about almost any play out there. How many times have we seen guys literally down there by themselves and the quarterback throws a touchdown pass to them and it's like, it was definitely a blown cover. So now we're rating the scores on Dak Prescott by the fault of the defense as opposed to him recognizing that there's a mismatch and me going there to get a score matters? Really? Is this where we're going now? I guess this is where we're going. It's insane because no matter what the Cowboys do, it will never, ever be considered decent or not. But be that as it may, we do have some problems here because Micah Parsons, it looks like he's going to be out 1 to 4 weeks. D-Law is going to probably miss several games as well. And we're headed down, murderer's row right now. We've got the Steelers, which right now are 3-0. We've got the Lions. We've got the Falcons. We've got the 49ers. And then we've got the Eagles. And we're shorthanded. And at the present time, our healthy defensive ends, Chauncey Golson, he's going to get his chance finally. Tavarius Wheat, not much experience. Marshawn Neesland, not much experience. And we have on the practice squad, Carl Lawson. And he's already been elevated the last 2 games to the game day roster, so he only has one more elevation that he can be, and then he has to be on the roster or stay on the practice squad. So the cupboard's bare. The cupboard is bare. We don't have guys. And see, this is the problem for the Cowboys in general is we usually have really good guys. I mean, you look at Micah Parsons and D-Law. They're some of the best in the business. The problem has always been for the Cowboys, once you get past that first level, the guys that are coming in are unproven, don't have much experience, or maybe just kind of meh. And there's a major drop-off. And right now, we have a big problem because even when we had D-Law and Micah, we were having a problem getting to the quarterback. So we'll have to wait and see if the Cowboys make a move. Some people will say, well, Micah's only going to be gone 1 to 2 games. Maybe only one, that maybe it's a panic move. Well, here's the way I look at it. It may be a panic move right now, but it could be a move that pays dividends going down the road because you can never have enough edge rushers. You can never have enough guys that can get up the field. And guess what? We've been fortunate with Micah Parsons as far as injuries go. This year, it seems like we're seeing injuries all over the place. I mean, Devontae Adams now we're hearing is going to be gone for the next 4 weeks. We know Christian McCaffrey still is not ready, okay? Debo Samuels might be back for the 49ers and things, but you're seeing major players. It may be that the Eagles go tomorrow without A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson. So we're looking at all of these injuries that you're better off if you can stockpile some players. Now, the Cowboys do have, and I know what the Cowboys mentality is they want to keep their powder dry. They do have $26 million in cap room left for this year after paying Dak and CD. And for those out there that have said, well, they shouldn't have paid Dak because, and CD because then they would have gotten some other players. People, we increased our cap space by getting those two done. With having those two contracts done, we already have $26 million in cap space next year and triggers that could open those up even more with CD and Dak, that literally by the signing of a pen, you could literally get yourself about another $40 million without any pain currently. And the Cowboys are looking at trying to roll that money over to give them more space. Honestly, I feel like the Dallas Cowboys are looking at from the standpoint of saying next year is our year, but I'll get to that part later on. Be that as it may, you look around and you say in our division, Washington is playing better than you thought they would, but we're still in September. The Eagles they're amassed with talent. They're a good team, but they've got plenty of flaws too. So you look at this from the standpoint of saying, is this a year that maybe I should try and go? San Francisco's 1-2 right now. They're not running away with the Lions. They just lost. And if you can beat San Francisco and the Lions somehow, some way, guys, it's a whole different ball game. And this is where, Jerry and Stephen Jones should be looking and saying, let's do everything we can to point to those two games. These next 5 games, if you can be on the winning side of this, if you can knock out the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Lions, you got an inside track, people. You got an inside track of actually doing something great. And this should be the mindset of Jerry Jones, but it's not. It's going to be like, well, we'll put it on Dak and CD. Here's the problem. And I'm trying to understand this myself. Shout out to John Owing, who ended up putting out here all the information on this. And this is where you wonder, is this because we're still early in the season and the Cowboys are trying to save some of this as we go on? Because what you want to be doing is you want to be playing your best ball at the end of the year. We've had years when we've started out in September and have been just great and looked like world beaters, but then you kind of peter off. We've seen the Eagles last year look great. Not really look great, but winning games early on and thought to be great to only peter off in the end. Is this the Cowboys trying to keep some of the powder dry and wait before we use it all down the road? Because at the moment, the Cowboys using motion and shifting, okay, as in you get to the line of scrimmage and a guy goes in motion to kind of change the look, to try and get the defense to move around, to try and get you some mismatches. We're 24th in motion and shifting. In RPOs, which are run pass options, we're 21st. There's 20 teams that are doing more run pass option. And that is one of those things that can help to keep the defense off balance, like you see, of course, with the Eagles, with Jalen Hurts, of course, being able to run, with the Baltimore Ravens, of course, with Lamar Jackson, where you're putting doubt in the defense's minds on, do I have to cover the quarterback or not? Play action. Now, play action I can't blame necessarily on Mike McCarthy, because play action only works if you're able to run the football. That is basically you're faking a run. You're making it look like a run and getting people sucked in, and then, of course, you're going to a pass where you get an advantage. But if you're not running the ball effectively, play action doesn't really work because they're not worried about your run. And using bunch formation, that's where you've got like 3 receivers and things together, where everybody's going a different direction and confusing the defense. We're 23rd. So basically, more times than not, the Cowboys are lining up and saying, here's what we're going to do, and trying to do it, as opposed to disguising what they're doing. Now, some of this may be because I've heard Dan Orlowski talking about the routes and stuff that CeeDee Lambs are running are more just straight routes. Some of this may be because we have rookies that are starting on the offensive line, that CeeDee Lamb wasn't there in training camp, and they're still working these things and getting everybody used to playing together. So I'm not saying, if we're talking about this same thing 6 games from now, then I'll say then it's more time to worry. I think we're just trying to work ourselves into getting this offense and things together. In the same way, you could look at the team and say what we were doing on run stopping and defense the last 2 games versus what we got this week. It seemed like the light switch went on for Mazi Smith, and shout out to Mazi Smith having the best game of his professional career. Mazi Smith living in the backfield. Now, people will say, well, that was just because it was against the Giants. I don't care who you're playing in the NFL. When you saw us getting pushed back, 4 or 5 yards back into the secondary on the defensive line versus what you saw this week, you have to be happy about the improvement of the players. And in the same sense, you have to say, right now, Cooper Beebe is ahead of, say, Tyler Guyton, which you would have thought it might have been the worst, because playing center, you've got to make the calls on the line and everything else, along with having your hands between your legs and centering the football, and having the guy closest to you than any other position on the field. You are literally a ball's width away from another guy's head, and it is hell. But Cooper Beebe is looking really, really good there. So I'm going to say this team, we're not where we want to be right now. We're not where we want to be right now. But I could say Green Bay last year, you could say the same thing. That Green Bay, most people were saying it's time to start figuring out your draft picks about this time last year. But they turned it on the second half. And the potential for the Cowboys to do that is there. When you think about guys like, let's say, Michael Gallup, his rookie year, first half of the season was meh, but by the second half, he turned it on. And typically, that's what happens, the learning curve with the young guys. And we are definitely relying on the young guys. Now, some of the things that can help us is, again, looking at the growth and maturation from 1 week to the next. Like I said, Mazi Smith, incredible game. Seeing him get tackles for loss, seeing him getting upfield, blocking literally like an eclipse, any light for Daniel Jones and opportunities. That was great. Seeing Overshown, who the week before seems like he was flat-footed and hesitant. This week, seeing him go through and literally going, boom, right now to the point of attack and coming with force, and as opposed to hesitating, you saw the difference of those 2 guys. And if we are going to be able to hold serve without the Cowboys getting somebody, and the only way you're going to get somebody that's going to make an instant impact is going to be a trade, which I don't see the Cowboys doing, although this is the time to do it when you have a few extra days to try and get them up to speed. We're going to need everybody else to step up and take a little bit more on them. We're going to need these young guys, the Marshawn Nealons and the Golstons, who Golston was drafted with that extra pick with Micah Parsons, to be able to step up and really get an opportunity to show off. And that's going to be the hope. Make no mistake about it. This is going to be a tough road to hoe going here without Micah and D-Law. But looking at that game down the stretch, we saw some good things from our players. Other good things we saw was, it seems like Diggs is actually getting himself back together. As good as everybody talks about how Nabbers is, Nabbers didn't do jack when he was covered by Diggs, and I'll say Diggs is back. I'll also say that we should be getting Deron Bland back too, which can help that secondary. If we can get the secondary going a little bit better and the linebacking core, it's not going to be easy without a great pass rush, but you find ways that you can work. The final thing I'm going to say is think about last year where the Dallas Cowboys offense went from Kellen Moore calling it to Mike McCarthy, and it started off slow to the point where we were doing exactly what we're doing now. I miss Kellen Moore. Should we have fired Kellen Moore? People wanting to bring back Kellen Moore until everything started clicking about week 6. And maybe, just maybe, that will be the case with our defense, that we have to give it time, because unlike Mike McCarthy taking over the play calling, where they probably changed 30% of the stuff, they probably did wholesale changes from Dan Quinn's defense to what it is now. And that's where you have to look at young guys, new defense, and time to gel. But there have been some positives on here, be it, though, against the Giants. You know, a win is a win and gives you a better feeling. It makes you get a little bit of confidence going into the next one. And that's what you have to do from this standpoint here. The thing that was crazy about this game, and this is, I don't know if this is the same officiating crew that we had in one of the other games, but if it is, it seems like this officiating crew is the anti-homer crew, because they usually call more penalties on the home team than the visitors. Now, I'm not going to say that we didn't get a break on the face mask one. Yeah, that was terrible. But some of these calls got to be really, really tick-tacky. And what happens when you start getting penalties called against you that may be a little bit on the close side, you know, when you know that they're going to call pass interference if you sneeze on the guy, then it slows you down because you're now more worried about getting the penalty than doing your job. And so with Tyler Guyton, who gave up a sack and then starts getting called on these penalties, it takes away your aggression, and that changes the game. And it's getting to be kind of crazy. Now, I will say, it seems like the illegal contact that they're calling less of those than they have in the past, because I swear it looks like sometimes our receivers are getting mugged. They're getting mugged before the ball gets here, and it's not being called. But even Pat McAfee was talking about this on the show yesterday. So let's finish this up with Pat McAfee talking about the real storyline was the referees.
Now, you might have fell asleep. Obviously, a lot of people did. The Cowboys win 20-15. They do not cover, though, if you got it at 5.5.
God,
they do cover if you got it at 5 somehow, like A.J. Hawk is going to say, or they do push it like A.J. Hawk is going to say. So we'll have a lot to chat about with the Cowboys and the Giants last night. Danny Dimes threw the ball 40 times. A lot of the conversation was if the Giants have to throw the ball more than 25 times, it's going to be a loss, especially with how the Dallas team has been giving up big runs. Well, the New York Giants rushed for 36 yards. Danny Dimes threw the ball 40 times. That seems like a recipe that you wouldn't win the game, but their time of possession, 35 minutes plus. So they were dominating the time of possession, but they were losing outright. And Brandon Aubrey could have made a field goal with like 30 seconds left to put them up 8 and have the Dallas Cowboys cover the 5.5, which I believe 80% of the people were betting on. Instead, he misses, which this dude doesn't do. Okay, Brandon Aubrey actually doesn't miss. Had another 60-yarder left. Had a 65-yarder last week. This dude, I learned his story a little bit more during the Prime kickoff show. His MLS career had ended. He said it did not go as well as he had planned it. He was with his wife watching football. Didn't know what his next step was going to be. I think he got into like doing finance or something like that. Got a completely new profession. I'm a retired professional athlete. Kind of lost his identity. And his wife, while they were watching football one Sunday, said, I know he has a cannon. Like, you got to be able to. Come on. You got to be able to do this. Found a kicking instructor 45 minutes away from his house, would travel 3 times a week for toys, and the guy hits 19 straight kicks to start his NFL career, and he doesn't just make them. They're going right down the center. They're in massive moments with a lot of eyes on him, and he's slaughtering the ball. He misses with 30 seconds left. And 80% of the sports gamblers lose. Okay.
That
was kind of crazy.
They're saying that Buffalo Wild Wings thing where you hit that button, or maybe Roger Goodell drops into the stadium and goes and with an invisible cloak on him, or these gamblers are, whatever the case. It was a little bit of a snoozer, but week 4 of the NFL season is off and running. NFC East is going to have a lot of conversations about them as the season goes on. People are questioning a lot of things. Chuck Pagano has turned himself into an NFC East conversation that's been brewing for a few years. That is everywhere, and we told him that was going to be noted. We are on the eve of Georgia B.A.M in a massive college football slate. It is a great time to be a football fan, and we're very lucky to do what we do for a living.
The penalties, I mean, come on now.
They were terrible.
The tackles for the Cowboys definitely had a lot of trouble with that Giants defensive front, but there were a few, flags picked up. There were a few flags right off the bat. I mean, we saw Cody Bellinger, and of course, the Giants didn't have as many as the Cowboys, but right away, one of those 4 for the Giants was a face mask called on Cody Bellinger.
Over everything.
Yep.
The amount of offsetting penalties, we tried to look it up. Was this the most in the history?
I think it was like 5 or 6 of them.
Is it the most in the history? Because that's an extra 10, 12 penalties there that could get added into that entire thing. And that's another stoppage, another full explanation. There was numerous times last night where we had to hold on. So a little bit more chatting. All right, yeah, that's what we thought.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're back. Yeah, and it's on an ISO there. They're talking about some of these ref crews really throwing the flags a lot. And then in our opinion, I think there's some crews that have been doing very well because it's not a topic of conversation every single Monday like it has been for the last 3-4 years.
Yep.
Literally every single Monday, it would be some ref crew screwed some team in a massive moment. And then as soon as that happens, that's kind of a bird call to everybody else. Be like, did you see what happened in the first quarter of our game? And then bang, bang, bang. It's like, these refs stink. This year, that has not been the case as much. I think the conversation's been these offenses suck. Yeah. Not the refs suck in this entirety. Defenses are good, not the refs suck. Last night it started back up. It started back up with like, hey, refs, we're not here for you. Yeah. Okay. We're not here for you. And then I guess this weekend's Colts-Steelers game has Land Clark, who I think he throws the second amount of flag. Cleet Blakeman throws the number 1 most amount of flags. And Cleet is gourmet. He's jacked too. I don't know what his crew's up to. I guess they see the game better than every other crew, but it's like these types of things are not what the NFL wants.
Penalties.
These are not the type of things that the NFL fans are looking for. You see the illegal formation penalty that certainly dissipated as I think they were hoping would happen. But boy, that got loud. Fans got loud. It's like we don't need 5-6 offsetting penalties plus another we don't need that happening. That's not how it needs.
Well, it always feels like in the opening game of the year with the Chiefs and Ravens, and then the Brazil game, the primetime games last night. The flags come early, too. Like, they do settle down later in the game, but it's always like the first drive, second drive, third drive when people are just tuning in. So it makes it even worse because it's like the first 3 drives of the game is just a ton of flags. Eventually, they settle in. I don't know if they're trying to make a point on how they're going to call it that game or whatever, but it feels like they are early, and it's in prime time a lot, too.
Money lost last night big time by gamblers.
Yeah, 80 over 80%, on that field goal, which,
Think about these sports books.
I know.
They're continuing.
Yeah.
How do they do it? They dump this thing into a never-ending vat of gasoline.
Yep.
And then just light it. And then it's just they step in the batter's box and they're doing this number here.
Yep, here we go.
Boom, bang, boom.
Danger.
Bang.
Gotta be
Ain't no lie.
Boom.
Danger.
5, 5.5, 6 all day.
They got to love the dogs because 15-3 ATS now are dogs of 5 or more points on this season, which is huge because people don't normally like betting dogs, especially the big dogs. They just take the favorites blindly. But Al last night saying when Aubrey was coming out to kick, he goes, a lot of people were loving that he's coming out to kick this field goal right now.
I did.
And he missed it.
And he missed it.
Well,
It was one of those ones
not loving it when Aubrey seemingly missed the kick. For the first time ever, this guy walks on the field, makes the kick, and that ball even
did miss
turns
his first
mid-flight.
professional kick.
And then it
Dell
straightens.
blew it, damn it.
There's a chance that invisible
Control in the wind.
I mean,
turn that fan off.
well, let's not talk about controlling the wind right now. Obviously.
In the clouds.
Joining us right now, ladies and gentlemen, is a man who was given a 5-point line because that is what was on the graphic. But after further investigation and research, the number was actually 5.5.
Ooh, it was 5.
So he's not given a loss. He's given a draw, a push. Ladies and gentlemen, the guy who hammered the Cowboys last night. Big Mike's biggest fan. Actually designed the hat that Big Mike was wearing last night during that game. A.J. Hawk. Hawker, you got a push last night, seemingly.
Yeah. I got to push. I got to push at 5, and you got to win. Is that right? How's that work?
Yeah. Well, listen, if we're going to go with what the actual line was, which was 5.5, okay, I win, you lose.
Oh,
but
you took the
instead,
Giants.
we're saying No.
Being gracious here.
No, AJ, you don't deserve that because the graphic did say that, but it was. Anyway, 6 to 5.5 to 5. Nonetheless, these sports books are swinging a hot bat. What did you learn from that game last night? How do you feel about that Cowboys defense only giving up so many rush yards as opposed to what they had been the last couple weeks when everybody was calling them soft and everyone's saying these guys don't have any gap discipline and these guys are a bunch of hero mans all over the field trying to do everything for everybody else. They have no trust or faith in each other. They obviously get a win. Danny Dimes throws it 40 times. That's not a recipe. What is your big takeaway, and how do you feel about that Cowboys defense?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if the Giants were going to win a game, this was a game that they
had
needed
to
to win. I think the Cowboys had, 11 penalties on them. The Cowboys did everything they could, I think, to honestly allow the Giants to be in that thing. And I think the Cowboys, obviously on offense, I know Lombo likes stats. I'm not a huge stat guy, but I think the Giants had like 1.1 yards per rush, which obviously if you do that, that's not exactly winning football. Tough to win a game that way, but I thought Danny Dimes was all right. You can't settle for field goals. You got to get the ball in the end zone. And I think that's the name of that game last night.
Congrats to the Cowboys getting a win in the snoozer.
Yep. It was terrible.
Kind of cagey match.
So pumped that it was over when it ended. It was like, God, thank God I can turn this TV off.
That was everybody's kind of takeaway. I fell asleep.
Yep. Smart. I wish I did.
Hard
not to. I wish I did.
Woke up, watched it this morning, and as I was watching it, I'm like, thank God I fell asleep in this entire thing. But then I went and checked the internet. I'm like, what was everybody's reaction to this game that I'm watching right now? And that's kind of a fun time to get to look back a few hours on everybody. There's a lot of people going, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This one.
Saying, not even just last night. I saw a ton of tweets saying the season's been boring, which I don't love.
Swagoo said, this game's cheeks, dude. Get me out of here. It's like, that's not how it's supposed to be with Cowboys and Giants either. You know?
Prime time.
Especially with the vibes that the Giants had going into that game. And then Dak Prescott, what he has been. Now, granted, they didn't have the ball there, really, for a while. They were being successful. C.D. Lamb doing his thing and then getting called. Obviously, penalty. Got to call it.
Yep.
Got to throw a flag. Certainly have to.
Don't have a choice.
Why wouldn't we?
It's ridiculous.
All right, so let's sort it out. Hey, let's figure it out, NFL games, primetime games.
Here on out.
Let's definitely figure this thing out because it was getting to be ridiculous with the penalties and stuff. But there were positives on here. People will still say the Cowboys, they stink and everything else. Listen, you want to look for growth, okay? And we got that growth. We got CeeDee Lamb back involved in the offense, feeling good early and often and stuff. He's got to feel like, okay, I got the monkey off my back. Dak Prescott, they didn't have the ball very much, but they were efficient. They did score and things. And let's not sleep on the Giants defense, okay? The Giants defense, they are a lot better than, say, the Giants offense. Daniel Jones, we know he's not a good quarterback, even though he did get his contract. We know that this is going to be Daniel Jones's last year in New York. But to see the Cowboys offensive line, for the most part, being able to help control that defense that got 8 sacks the week before to only give up 1, even with all of the damn penalties that were called on them. You have to look at it and say that's some growth. We still need work on the tackles. Tyler Guyton's got to do better. Terrence Steele's definitely got to come back together and all that. But those things were positive, and to see our defensive line play better. Because ultimately, the Dallas Cowboys and any team, you win through the trenches. That controls and sets up everything on the field. So, and that's all I got for you guys right now. I appreciate y'all, and we'll be, of course, doing what we do, a lot more videos. I'm Mark Holmes, and I'll see you guys real soon. Peace.